Hey amazing listeners! If you love stories filled with secrets, family betrayal, and the kind of suspense that keeps you at the edge of your seat, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps this story reach more wonderful people just like you. Let's begin. Rain pelted the windows of the Heir ancestral estate like the sky itself was warning of what was coming. Lightning split the heavens, and thunder shook the old stone walls. In the midst of the storm, a solitary figure walked up the cobblestone path, his coat drenched, boots heavy with mud, eyes burning with purpose. Heir had been away for 2 long years, traveling the world, mastering every skill his family expected him to master. At 23, he carried the weight of his upbringing and the expectation of the Heir legacy. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and old stone, a reminder of the empire he was born into, but had never fully controlled. The massive oak doors of the estate groaned as he pushed them open. Inside, silence hung like a shroud. Only the flicker of candlelight revealed the grandeur of the manor, walls adorned with portraits of ancestors, each staring down as if judging his every move. A voice cut through the stillness. The patriarch of the Heir family, a stern man with eyes like polished steel, stood at the top of the staircase. "Aidan, welcome home," he said, his tone measured, yet heavy with unspoken tension. Aidan bowed slightly. "Thank you, father. I have returned as promised." The patriarch's gaze lingered on him longer than necessary, then turned toward the shadows where the family council waited. Whispered exchanges passed quickly, faces tight with concern. Aidan's intuition pricked. Something was wrong. Before he could ask, the patriarch's words fell like a hammer. "Aidan, you have a brother." The words hit him like lightning. His mind, trained to calculate, strategize, and anticipate, faltered. A brother? A son of this family he had never known? The hall spun around him. Servants avoided his gaze, council members whispered behind their hands, and the storm outside seemed to intensify. The patriarch's voice softened, almost mournful. "He has been hidden for your protection, for the good of the family." Aidan felt a surge of anger, confusion, and fear. Hidden. For protection. From what, or whom? And why had he never known? A door creaked open at the far end of the hall. A young man stepped forward, tall and lean, his expression a mix of fear and curiosity. His clothes were simple, the dirt of the countryside clinging to the cuffs. Yet, there was an intensity in his eyes that immediately drew Aidan's attention. Heir. 17 years old. The blood of the Heirs, concealed from the world, now standing before him. For the first time, Aidan did not feel like the son groomed to inherit everything. For the first time, he felt threatened. The patriarch's eyes softened as he spoke again. "He will live here now. You will train together. The heirship will be decided between you." Aidan's jaw tightened. Train together. Decide heirship. The empire he had imagined as his birthright suddenly became a battlefield. As the storm outside raged on, Aidan realized one truth: the return to home had not brought peace, it had brought war. And this war, unlike any he had faced, would be fought with blood, mind, and heart. If you're hooked by mysteries and family secrets, smash that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment with what you think will happen next. Let's share this thrilling journey with everyone who loves suspense and genius mind battles. Chapter 2 continues. The countryside was silent, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. The sun had barely risen, painting the fields with gold and mist. Among the rolling hills and scattered farmhouses, a young boy sat on a patch of bare earth, sketching intricate patterns with a stick. Heir was 17, but he seemed older in ways that no one could see. His hands moved with precision, drawing machines and structures he had never seen in books. In the simplicity of his rural world, his mind worked like a supercomputer, analyzing, predicting, inventing. He didn't know who he truly was, only that something in him always felt out of place, an instinctive pull toward greatness he had yet to understand. His adoptive mother, a kind woman who had raised him alone, watched from the edge of the field. She knew his secret, that he was the last-born son of the Heir dynasty, hidden to protect him from enemies who would have killed him to secure the family legacy. "Pack your things, Kai," she said gently, a tear trailing down her cheek. "They've come for you. It's time." Kai froze. His heart raced. Who? Why now? She knelt beside him. "The Heirs, They want you to return. To take your place. You are the heir, but you must prove yourself. For the first time, Kai felt a storm rising inside him, not of rain or wind, but of destiny, responsibility, and fear. He had spent his life among the fields, the animals, the soil. And now, he was being called into a world of opulence, power, and danger. The journey to the estate was long, but Kai's mind never rested. Every moment, he observed patterns, the rhythm of the horses' hooves, the angles of the carriage wheels, the way the roads twisted through the countryside. His mind was already calculating every challenge ahead, unconsciously preparing for a world he had never truly known. When the carriage finally reached the gates of the manor, the grandeur of the estate stole his breath. Marble columns, golden chandeliers, polished floors, everything screamed wealth and power. And yet, despite the awe, Kai felt calm. A clarity settled over him. Whatever trials awaited, he would face them with his mind, with strategy, and with courage. As he stepped out, a figure emerged from the manor, a tall young man, older than him, with sharp eyes and an air of authority. Heir, Kai's brother. The heir he had been told to compete against. Kai's chest tightened. Fear and curiosity mixed together. This was the man who had grown in luxury, trained for greatness, and had every advantage. Yet, Kai felt a quiet confidence. He had his mind, his instincts, and something more, something even Aiden could not see yet. The first glance, the first meeting, set the tone. Two brothers, born of the same blood, now standing on opposite sides of a battlefield neither had chosen, but both would fight to win. The winds of destiny were shifting, and nothing in the manor would ever be the same. Amazing listeners, if you love family secrets, hidden genius, and sibling rivalry that keeps your heart racing, smash that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments who you think will win the legacy battle. Chapter 3 continues. The grand estate was alive with tension, though its walls remained silent as stone. Candlelight flickered across polished floors, casting shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. Heir, walking through the main hall with the measured confidence of a man who had always believed in his birthright, felt the first pangs of unease. Heir arrived shortly after, his boots scuffing against the marble, dusty from the countryside roads. The contrast was striking, Aiden in tailored dark suits, hair perfect, every movement precise. Kai in simple clothes, eyes sharp and alert, carrying an air of quiet intelligence rather than polished refinement. The patriarch, standing tall at the top of the staircase, addressed them both. You are sons of this house, and the time has come to determine who shall inherit the Heir legacy. You will live under the same roof, train under the same eyes, and compete for the right to rule. Aiden's jaw tightened. His mind raced. He had trained his entire life for this moment, yet he hadn't anticipated this intruder, this brother, now standing in the very room meant to secure his destiny. Kai bowed respectfully, though a spark of defiance burned in his gaze. I am here to learn and serve, he said softly, though his mind was already racing with strategy. The first evening was a quiet war. Servants whispered, glances were exchanged, and the family council observed closely. Every step, every gesture, every word became a measure of skill, control, and intelligence. Aiden tried to assert dominance, speaking in polished tones, sharing tales of his travels and experiences abroad, attempting to impress the council. He saw the intrigue in their eyes as he described his achievements. Kai remained silent, observing everything. He noticed how the council members reacted, the smallest patterns in their behavior, and the subtle ways the manor's hierarchy worked. He didn't need to speak to be noticed. His mind worked in silence, mapping the unseen structure of power. Later that night, in the study lined with the family's most treasured books, Aiden confronted Kai. You don't belong here, he said, a tremor of fear disguised as anger. You've been hidden for a reason. Go back where you came from. Kai didn't flinch. I belong wherever my blood is, he replied evenly. And I will do what is necessary to prove myself. But I will not step back from who I am. The tension was electric, a quiet storm that promised an explosion. Outside, the wind howled against the windows, echoing the conflict within. The brothers, though bound by blood, were already enemies in subtle ways. Every glance, every unspoken word, carried weight. The patriarch, watching silently, knew that this was only the beginning. The trials would test not just skill, but character, judgment, and resolve. In the end, only one could be heir, but neither would remain unchanged. As midnight fell, Aidan stared at his reflection in a polished mirror. For the first time, he questioned what he had always believed, that he alone was destined to inherit the family legacy. Across the hall, Kai sat by a window, looking out over the fields, his mind alive with strategies, plans, and questions. Both were preparing for war, though neither knew the battlefield would extend far beyond the rules of the trials. The collision of two worlds, the polished luxury of one and the raw genius of the other, had begun. And no one, not even the patriarch, could predict who would rise or who would fall. Listeners, the stakes are higher than ever. If you're loving the tension between these two brothers, hit that like button, subscribe, and comment on what strategy you think each brother will use next. Chapter 4 continues. The following morning, the Heir estate buzzed with purpose. Servants moved quietly but efficiently, preparing the hall for the trials. The air smelled of polished wood, ink, and anticipation. Outside, the first rays of sunlight reflected off the marble floors, illuminating the portraits of ancestors whose eyes seemed to follow the brothers as they prepared. The patriarch stood in the center of the grand hall. "The trials begin today," he announced, his voice echoing through the space. "These challenges will determine the future of the Heir family. Intelligence, strategy, morality, and leadership will be tested. Every action, every decision will be noted. The heir will emerge not just through skill, but through character." The first trial was a test of strategy and negotiation. Each brother was given a mock business scenario, an urgent decision that could either gain wealth or ruin. Aidan, trained in the world of finance and diplomacy, quickly presented a polished, confident plan. He spoke with precision, anticipating questions, presenting himself as the natural choice. Kai, however, worked silently, observing the reactions of those around him. He suggested a solution that seemed unconventional, risky even, but perfectly calculated. His insights shocked the council. Small nods, murmurs of approval, they could not deny his brilliance. The second trial tested public leadership and communication. Aidan performed flawlessly, his voice commanding, demeanor confident, every detail rehearsed. Kai, though shy, spoke with clarity, using empathy and instinct to address concerns that Aidan's polished presentation had overlooked. Again, his unique approach impressed quietly, unnervingly so. By the third trial, moral judgment and critical decision-making, the differences between them were stark. Aidan analyzed risks and rewards, seeking to optimize outcomes. Kai considered consequences not just for profit, but for people, for relationships, and for justice. Observers whispered, "He is different, extraordinary." Tension between the brothers grew. Aidan noticed that Kai's unconventional methods were winning admiration in ways he couldn't control. His confidence gave way to frustration. "This shouldn't be happening," he thought, pacing in his room later that night. "I am supposed to be the heir. I've earned it." And yet. Kai, in contrast, reflected quietly in the gardens. The trials challenged him not only intellectually but emotionally. He realized that this was not just a test of skill but of heart, and he must remain true to himself. By the end of the day, it was clear, both brothers were extraordinary, yet different. Aidan's training and polish contrasted with Kai's raw, instinctive genius. Both had strengths that could lead to greatness, but only one would inherit the legacy. As night fell, the patriarch watched silently from his study, candlelight flickering across the walls. He knew that the coming trials would push both brothers to their limits. Rivalry would turn to resentment, admiration might turn to fear, and only through struggle would the true heir reveal themselves. Outside, the wind rustled through the estate's old oaks, carrying with it the promise of storms, both literal and metaphorical. The trial was not over, and neither brother knew just how far the path would take them. Hey amazing listeners! Things are heating up between the brothers. If you're loving this story of rivalry, secrets, and hidden genius, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell us in the comments who you think will come out on top. Chapter 5 continues. The days at the Heir estate grew heavier with tension. Every corridor, every room seemed alive with quiet war. Aidan, once confident that the heirship was his destiny, began to feel the cracks of unease. He had trained his entire life to be the successor, yet Kai, with nothing but instinct, intelligence, and an unshakable calm, continued to impress everyone. It started with small things. Kai solved problems Aidan had struggled with for hours. He noticed the smallest inefficiencies in operations, the tiniest inconsistencies in reports, the subtle hints of tension among the staff. The council began to watch him differently, nodding at his insights in quiet approval. Aiden's confidence began to erode. Anger followed. Fear followed anger. And with fear came the first flickers of sabotage. One evening, while Kai was reviewing the day's challenges in the library, Aiden deliberately misfiled some of the documents he needed. A subtle twist, almost invisible, designed to slow Kai down. But Kai, perceptive as always, noticed the anomaly and corrected it before anyone could see. "You're trying to manipulate me," Kai said quietly one evening, eyes sharp. "It won't work." Aiden froze. How had the boy from the countryside, this outsider, seen through his subtlety so quickly? His frustration became tangible, a storm brewing in his chest. Yet, beneath the anger, there was also a pang of something he could not name. Was it admiration? Or was it fear disguised as respect? The line blurred, and Aiden hated the confusion. The trials continued, pushing the brothers to extremes. Kai approached every challenge with honesty and empathy, while Aiden relied on polish, strategy, and cunning. Their differences could not have been more stark. Aiden, trained and refined, Kai, raw and instinctive. But the cracks in their relationship were not just about competition, they were about fear, identity, and belonging. Aiden had always been the adopted son striving for acceptance. Now, for the first time, he faced someone with the same blood, the same right to the name, and a genius that rivaled his own. Late at night, Aiden sat in the study alone, staring at the portraits of the family ancestors. He whispered to himself, a confession he could not voice to anyone else. "They can't see what I see. They can't understand. If he wins, everything I've worked for disappears. I can't let that happen." Meanwhile, Kai sat by the window, writing designs in a notebook. He felt the weight of expectation, the pressure to prove himself, but also a quiet confidence that his honesty and intelligence would guide him. He did not wish harm to his brother, though he sensed the storm brewing in Aiden's heart. The first confrontation came in the form of the next trial, a leadership test that required them to manage a group of staff and solve a critical operational issue. Aiden tried to undermine Kai subtly, redirecting his team, whispering doubts. But Kai's calm, analytical mind won over the group. His solutions were elegant, effective, and humane. Aiden's frustration reached a breaking point. "You're not even supposed to exist," he muttered under his breath, pacing the hallway. That one thought, raw and unfiltered, revealed the deepest wound in his psyche, the fear of losing a family he had fought his entire life to be part of. For the first time, he considered crossing lines he had never crossed before: manipulation, deception, sabotage. And yet, a small part of him resisted. Beneath the anger, beneath the fear, there was still a faint bond of blood, of shared history, of something unspoken that tied him to Kai. As night fell over the estate, both brothers retired to their rooms, carrying the invisible scars of the day. One plotted, the other reflected. Both knew that the coming trials would break them, or define them. The storm outside mirrored the storm within. Cracks in the brotherhood were no longer just minor fissures, they were widening, threatening to tear apart the very foundation of the Heir family. Listeners, secrets are about to be revealed. If you're hooked by hidden truths, rivalries, and genius minds, hit like, subscribe, and comment your theories. Who will take the legacy? Chapter 6 continues. The estate was quiet, but the air felt heavy, pregnant with secrets that had been kept too long. Kai wandered into the old family archive, a place few were allowed. Dust hung in sunbeams, and rows of books, letters, and journals whispered of generations past. His hand trembled as he pulled out a leather-bound journal. It belonged to his late mother, the woman who had given him life and hidden him from the dangers of the family empire. She had written of her fears, her love, and the prophecy that had forced her to conceal him. A child born in silence will either restore or destroy the empire. Protect him, for the world does not yet know his worth. Kai's heart pounded. He had always felt different, but this explained everything: the isolation, the instinctive brilliance, the quiet tension that seemed to follow him. He was not just competing for an inheritance, he was part of a story centuries in the making, a story that demanded choices heavier than most could bear. Meanwhile, Aiden, sensing the growing admiration for Kai, discovered the prophecy himself. Fear and paranoia gripped him. His mind raced with possibilities: Could the prophecy be true? Could this boy, this brother, take everything he had worked for? The revelation pushed Aidan to extremes. He began to calculate every possible way to secure the heirship, considering subtle manipulations and alliances. Yet, beneath the strategy and fear, there was guilt. He knew in his heart that he could never harm Kai without destroying a bond that, buried deep, still connected them. As the brothers prepared for the next trial, the estate felt smaller, suffocating almost, filled with the echoes of history, expectation, and the weight of blood. Every decision, every glance, every action carried consequences beyond the present moment. That evening, the patriarch called them to the family hall. "The trials are not just about intelligence or strategy," he said, voice grave. "They are about the heart. Remember this, for the weight of blood is heavier than the weight of gold." Kai absorbed every word. He understood that his choices would define not just himself, but the future of the empire and of his brother. Aidan, too, felt the truth in those words, though he masked it behind pride and calculation. The brothers left the hall, each carrying the invisible burden of legacy. One carried fear and ambition, the other carried destiny and empathy. Both understood that the coming days would test not only their abilities but the very core of their character. The night was deep, the wind whispering through the oaks like voices of ancestors. Both brothers stared into the darkness, knowing that the trials ahead would demand more than they could imagine, and that the path to becoming heir would challenge not just their minds, but their hearts. Listeners, the tension is reaching its peak. Secrets, betrayals, and mind games are about to unfold. Hit like, subscribe, and comment who you trust more, Aidan or Kai. Chapter 7 continue. Night had fallen over the Heir estate, but the darkness did not bring peace. Candles flickered in the halls, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. In the east wing, Aidan paced his room, hands clenching and unclenching, mind racing with fear and anger. He knew that Kai's growing reputation as a genius prodigy was threatening everything he had been trained to achieve. Every trial, every decision, every small victory of Kai's felt like a personal attack. The boy from the countryside, unrefined yet brilliant, was rewriting the rules of the game, and Aidan was losing control. That's when the shadows arrived. A group of distant relatives and rivals, who had long resented the Heir family's power, slipped into Aidan's chambers under the guise of night. They whispered promises. "Help us ensure the heirship is yours, and we will secure your place forever. Let the boy fail." Fear collided with ambition in Aidan's chest. He had never been offered a shortcut like this, a chance to guarantee victory. Every fiber of his training screamed against it: honor, loyalty, morality, but the voice of fear, the terror of losing his family and legacy, drowned out everything else. Aidan agreed, reluctantly, his hand trembling as he sealed the pact with a nod. That night, the first act of betrayal began. He manipulated schedules, misdirected information, and subtly undermined Kai's preparations. But he also felt a pang of guilt, a faint voice whispering that blood ties were stronger than any contract. Meanwhile, Kai remained unaware of the forces working against him. He continued to study, to plan, to observe the estate. His mind, sharp and instinctive, sensed tension in the air. Staff seemed uneasy, whispers lingered just beyond his hearing. Something was amiss, but he could not pinpoint it. One evening, as Kai reviewed his notes by candlelight, a loyal servant approached him quietly. "Sir," she said, glancing around nervously, "there are those who want to see you fail. Be careful. Not everything here is as it seems." Kai's eyes narrowed. The pieces began to fit together in his mind. He understood the danger, yet he did not let fear rule him. He simply observed, calculated, and prepared, knowing that the shadows could not outwit the light of clarity. Aidan, on the other hand, lay awake in the dark, torn between ambition and conscience. He thought of his adopted life, of the years he had fought to belong, of the fear that this brother, this prodigy, could take everything away. And in the quiet of the night, he realized that betrayal, even when rationalized, was a heavy weight. Outside, a storm mirrored the turmoil within. Thunder cracked the sky, lightning illuminating the manor's silhouette against the darkness. The brothers' fates, once separate, were now inextricably intertwined. Every choice, every action, carried consequences that could not be undone. As the night deepened, the estate itself seemed to hold its breath. Aidan plotted in the shadows. Kai prepared in silence. And the first act of betrayal, subtle yet deadly, set the stage for a confrontation that would test not just their minds, but their hearts. Listeners, the ultimate test is here. Who will inherit the Heir legacy? Hit like, subscribe, and comment your predictions. This trial will shock you. Chapter 8 Continue. The manor was silent in the early hours of dawn, as though it were holding its breath. The final trial, known only as the ancestral dilemma, was about to begin. Deep beneath the estate, a sealed chamber opened for the first time in decades. Its walls were lined with centuries of ancestral wisdom, symbols, and secrets, and the air was thick with history and expectation. Aidan and Kai descended the marble staircase in silence. Neither spoke. Words would not suffice here. The patriarch led them to the chamber, his face solemn. This trial will test not just your intellect, but your heart. Every choice will reveal who you truly are. Only one can inherit the legacy, but how you face this trial will define you forever. The doors closed behind them. Torches flickered, illuminating a room filled with challenges, ethical dilemmas, complex strategies, and decisions that could save or destroy lives. The first challenge required them to choose between personal gain and the welfare of the family staff. Aidan immediately calculated the best strategic option, aiming to maximize advantage. Kai, however, considered the consequences for every individual. He chose empathy, ensuring that no one would suffer, even if it meant taking personal risk. The second challenge tested loyalty and sacrifice. Both were asked to protect a valuable asset, but one choice required abandoning a team member. Aidan hesitated, torn between winning and conscience. Kai, without hesitation, acted to save another, placing his brother at risk in the process. The third trial demanded truth and moral courage. Secrets were revealed, including the past betrayals and alliances. Kai faced the truth with clarity and honesty, embracing the complexity of his family's history. Aidan, racked with guilt over his covert sabotage, faced an inner battle that shook him to the core. The final trial, the heart of the ancestral dilemma, required them to confront each other directly. Aidan, seeing the purity, brilliance, and courage of Kai, realized the weight of his envy and fear. The polished confidence that had carried him through life faltered before the unshakable resolve of his brother. Kai acted first, reaching out to Aidan in an unexpected gesture. "You are my brother. The family is not a prize to win, it is ours together. I will not let rivalry destroy us." Aidan froze, a storm of emotions flooding him: fear, pride, guilt, love, admiration. In that moment, he saw not an opponent, but a reflection of his own struggle, the desire to belong, to prove worth, to protect what mattered most. Instead of striking or sabotaging, Aidan lowered his defenses. I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered. "I only wanted to belong, to matter." Kai smiled faintly, eyes full of understanding. "Then let us carry this legacy together, brother. Strength is not only in winning, it is in choosing the right path." The chamber, silent and watchful for centuries, seemed to exhale. Both brothers emerged not as rivals, but as allies, their bond tempered by trials, revelations, and understanding. The true heir was clear, not just by intellect or strategy, but by character, heart, and courage. The patriarch, observing from above, felt a quiet pride. The trials had tested everything, yet what had emerged was more than a successor. It was the unity of the family, the harmony of genius and experience, empathy and ambition. The storm outside had passed. Sunlight pierced the manor windows, illuminating the two brothers standing side by side. For the first time, the weight of blood, the legacy, and the family's future felt shared, not divided. Listeners, the story reaches its tipping point. Secrets are revealed, rivalries explode, and choices will decide the fate of a family empire. Hit that like button, subscribe, and comment your predictions. Who will take the legacy? Chapter 9 Continue. The Heir estate was shrouded in an uneasy silence. The trials had pushed both brothers to their limits, but nothing compared to the tension now, an invisible storm that hung between them, stronger than any thunder outside. Aidan sat alone in the study, the weight of guilt heavy on his shoulders. His sabotage, his jealousy, his attempts to manipulate outcomes, all had been exposed. Through whispers, subtle evidence, and Kai's keen observation, the truth had surfaced. Every misstep, every hidden act, had been noticed. He clenched his fists, torn between shame and the instinct to fight. I didn't mean to hurt him, he whispered. But even as he said it, he knew that intentions did not erase consequences. Kai approached quietly. His expression was calm, yet there was a steel edge beneath it, a mixture of disappointment and understanding. Aiden, he said softly, I know why you did it. You feared losing everything you worked for, everything you thought was yours. But the family, the legacy, it isn't a prize. It's a responsibility. Aiden shook his head, pain etched across his face. I've failed, haven't I? I've destroyed my chance. I've destroyed us. Kai shook his head, taking a step closer. No. This isn't destruction, it's a lesson. A moment of clarity. You can still choose who you want to be. This isn't about winning, it's about understanding. The council gathered in the hall, whispers swirling like a storm in a teacup. The patriarch stood at the front, stern and watchful. We have witnessed every action, every decision, he said. The final judgment is not only about strategy or intellect. It is about heart, about character, about the choices you make when no one is watching. Aiden's eyes fell to the floor. He had expected judgment, punishment, perhaps even expulsion. But he found something he hadn't anticipated, a chance at redemption. Kai continued, his voice unwavering. Aiden, the Empire isn't mine to take alone. If you want, we can bear it together. Strength is not in defeating each other, it's in lifting one another. A silence settled over the hall, thick and heavy. The council members exchanged glances, sensing the shift. The room was no longer about competition, it was about reconciliation, about the courage to rise above fear and pride. Aiden swallowed hard. His pride, honed and polished over 23 years, felt fragile and almost useless in the face of his brother's empathy. I want to try, he whispered. I don't want to destroy what we share. I want to belong. Not just to the Empire, but to you, to us. Kai nodded. The moment was fragile, yet powerful. It was the first time Aiden had acknowledged the truth within himself, that rivalry, envy, and fear were destructive, and that acceptance, trust, and love were stronger. The patriarch's voice rang out, decisive but not harsh. The true test is complete. Both sons have shown brilliance, courage, and insight. But it is one thing to excel, and another to act with integrity when faced with betrayal. This is the measure of a true heir. Aiden met Kai's eyes. In that instant, he saw not a competitor, but a mirror of himself, the fear, the ambition, the hope, and the strength. And for the first time, he understood, a family's power was not in a single ruler, but in unity, in trust, and in shared responsibility. The storm outside had passed. The weight of tension lifted slightly, replaced by something heavier, yet steadier, understanding. The breaking point had come, and both brothers had endured, learned, and grown. Amazing listeners, this is the conclusion. The legacy, the rivalry, and the family's future are decided. Hit that like button, subscribe, and comment your thoughts. Who would you follow if you were in their place? Chapter 10 continue. The morning sun poured through the tall windows of the Heir estate, golden light illuminating the grandeur of the manor. The final trial was over, and the estate waited with bated breath for the patriarch's decision. The family council stood silently, each member holding their judgment in their eyes. The patriarch, his hands resting on the ancestral emblem, spoke with a calm authority that silenced every whisper. The heir of the Heir legacy is not chosen by brilliance alone, nor by cunning, nor by wealth. The true heir is one who balances intelligence with empathy, ambition with honor, and genius with heart. This trial has revealed not only skill, but character. Kai and Aiden stood side by side, their differences clear yet complementary. One had grown in the simplicity of the countryside, the other in luxury and expectation. One relied on instinct and heart, the other on experience and polish. Both had shown courage, insight, and brilliance, but only one could carry the official mantle of heir. After a long pause, the patriarch raised his voice. Kai Hale, the boy hidden from the world, has shown the clarity, wisdom, and empathy that our family has long needed. He will be named heir. But this does not diminish his brother. Aiden Hale has shown resilience, strategy, and loyalty. His experience and guidance will be invaluable. Together, they will lead. Kai's eyes met Aiden's. Relief, gratitude, and love intertwined. We carry it together, Kai said softly. The Empire is ours to protect, not to fight over. Aiden nodded, tears welling. I understand now. Strength is not in defeating you, it's in standing beside you. The patriarch smiled faintly, the weight of generations visible in his eyes. Legacy is not a burden for one, it is a shared responsibility. May this family never forget that. The council members nodded, murmurs of approval passing through the hall. The storm of rivalry had ended, replaced by a new understanding. The brothers, once competitors, were now allies, ready to face the Empire together. Outside, sunlight reflected off the manor windows, casting a warm glow on the gardens and fields. The weight of blood, the prophecy, and the trials had tested them, but they had emerged stronger, united, and wiser. Kai and Aiden walked side by side through the estate, no longer divided by jealousy, fear, or ambition. They had learned the most difficult lesson of all, that true power lies not in conquest, but in character, empathy, and shared purpose. As they reached the balcony overlooking the estate, Kai looked at Aiden and said, "Whatever challenges come next, we face them together. Not as rivals, but as brothers." Aiden smiled, a weight lifting from his shoulders for the first time in years. "Together," he echoed. And so the Heir legacy entered a new era, not defined by a single heir, but by unity, intelligence, and the strength of family. The Empire, the trials, and the storms behind them had forged two brothers who understood that the truest victory was not power, it was love, loyalty, and the courage to do what is right. Amazing listeners, take a deep breath, because what you just witnessed wasn't just a story about heirs or legacy, it was a story about us. About the battles we fight inside ourselves, about jealousy, fear, love, forgiveness, and the courage to choose the right path even when it hurts. If this journey touched something in you, if it made you rethink rivalry, ambition, or the meaning of family, then don't leave without showing that connection. Hit that like button so this story reaches others who need it. Subscribe for more stories that challenge the mind and heal the heart. And in the comments, tell me, what part of this story made you reflect the most? Aiden's struggle, Kai's genius, or the moment they chose unity over destruction? Your comment might be the one that inspires someone else today. So drop it below, let's talk, let's heal, and let's grow together as a family of brilliant minds. I'm waiting for your thoughts.